Everyone wants something more or different from life. Maybe they want to be more qualified, fitter, wealthier, thinner, more successful, or financially free. People have dreams and ambitions, goals and wishes. For most people, life might bring them a degree of movement in the direction of their hopes, but for many, it won't. The Multiplex team is fascinated by this, by the difference between what people intend to do and what they actually end up achieving. Let's take a look at these 6 birds, sitting together on a telephone wire. They're happy together, and for a while, there's no rush to fly away or to find food, nor to make nests, nor feed baby birds. After a while, though, some of them get restless. Then 4 birds decide to fly away. How many are left? 6. There are 6 birds left. There's a difference between deciding to fly away and the action of leaving. The birds, like us, are often held back from living their intended lives by 1,000 reasons that act to keep them where they are. This model guides how we support people activating through coaching and other programs. It's about helping someone or a team of people to access and create a different future. Sometimes it's a simple thing, when you take one step and a new future opens up. For instance, if you say hello to that new person in your work team, maybe she'll smile at you and a conversation will start. Maybe the conversation could lead to a date, and then, who knows? Change is often like this. A simple new behavior can unlock a chain of actions that can change your life. Our model is for activating more difficult change. It's about how we support people to activate new possibilities for themselves and the people around them when their challenge is complex. For example, becoming a leader when you feel like an unworthy imposter is tough. Losing weight is never just about eating less or moving more if you've been large all your life. It's a really difficult thing to do. Becoming an entrepreneur when you crave security and structure is never about doing an online course. Complex activation needs a different approach. In our work, we've understood that 2 underlying realities are at play when we support complex behavior change. First, there's a false sense that we all need when we want to make a change, willpower, and the determination to just do it. This might sometimes work with simple changes, but it consistently does not work with complex challenges needing time and involving other people or the development of new personal identities. Secondly, there's the difficult-to-accept reality that the environment is more powerful and influential in creating sustainable change than individual ability. Great leaders emerge when the time is right, or when the environment is right to support their vision, and then they set about creating structure for their greatness to be felt. We've worked with this idea of activation for a few years now, and it's based on our Gestalt approach to change as well as a systemic view on how people and teams can find or create support in their environments. There are 4 important aspects of successful change activation. They're all tied together, and they all need to be developed. Once they're working at full power, they become indistinguishable, all working to support the person. Some of you might know what this is. It's a Mark 9 Spitfire from the 1940s, and I'm going to use its propeller as a metaphor for our activation model. Activation begins with a simple, well-understood question relating to the idea. What are we trying to do differently from the past? We're looking for a question to unlock the power of the Spitfire. For our Spitfire, the question is straightforward. How do we move this aircraft speedily through the air? We can add some detail. Using our strong engine, we need something that creates low pressure in front of the airplane so the plane gets sucked along at high speed and reliably. The activation question is our starting point, but it often takes real work to define it. For instance, I want to own a Ferrari might be the young professional's starting statement, but after time with an activation coach, his question could become, how can I be significant? Or how can I become a financial pillar for my family? Once we've defined an activation question that identifies what we're trying to do differently from the past, we start to develop each of the 4 blades of our activation model's propeller. Blade 1. Awareness. Our first focus as activation coaches is to slow the person down and encourage them to hold back from leaping to premature action. Everything we've discovered shows that unprepared action leads to poor results, and over time, poor results end up teaching us that we're no good at changing. Awareness is not simply preparation work in activation. It is a leading driver of change, and as we encourage the changer to become more and more aware of her question, her resources, her habits, her environment, and so on, she draws closer and closer to the movement that signals activation. Blade 2. Values and Identity. We can't become what we don't have the potential to be. The more we try to become something we're not, the more stuck we will become. When someone wants to activate change, the role of the activation coach is to help them become aware of what that desired identity might mean for them. The senior manager who wants to become CEO spends time with his activation coach and realizes that his need to lead the business is less important and a distraction from his bigger need, to lead his wife and grown children through the final season of her illness and her foreseeable loss to cancer. Sometimes one activation question hides another, one that is closer in values and identity to who the person really is or wants to be. Values and identity are the bedrock of what people are and what they stand on each day. The activation process helps people remember their bedrock in vivid and precious detail. Blade 3. Trigger. During the process of activation, people become more aware of the triggers that are around them, those opportunities that might otherwise be ignored, but in the context of activation become opportunities to move forward. Perhaps you want to feel better about yourself physically. Maybe your activation question is about one day being a nimble and playful grandparent, and you're enjoying the process of drawing that possibility into awareness. One day, your friend says she has joined a park run club. She says how wonderful it's been for her and that she would love to share it with you. She asks you to come along with her on Saturday morning. No pressure, just come along and let's walk or run 5 kilometers with some really nice people. There's the trigger. Maybe you vaguely remember seeing a poster about the club sometime before, but you weren't primed to act. Now, your awareness, your friendship, and the simplicity of getting moving urges you to go along on Saturday morning. Blade 4. Firm ground. Activation requires firm ground, context, and structure. It's impossible to get an MBA without going to business school. Business schools provide a structure and ultimately a certificate. Eating more healthy is difficult if you live with your family or friends who drink beer and eat ice cream at every meal. An important part of the activation process is to look carefully at the structures in your life that support your unhelpful habits, and then identify your current or future helpful habits. Firm ground can support you when willpower lets you down. Once you've engaged your awareness, you've made sure your values and identity are aligned, you've started scanning for triggers to support your change, and you're building supportive firm ground habits, you've fired up your activation propeller. And when the propeller starts to turn, each blade merges into each other. They become one thrusting mechanism of activation. Activation is a full contact sport. Underlying it is a hunger for change and new experience. As activation coaches, we know that while everyone has the inherent capacity, often even the desire to learn and change, not everyone will. This activation works, and we've proven it, but it's a mechanism for supporting movement. It must be driven by an engine, and that engine is you. Your hunger, frustration, desire for something new, your courage and willingness to risk, these can ignite your engine and become your ongoing drivers. Awareness and the other blades will help you activate, but you need to bring your engine, even if it's a bit rusty or out of tune, to the process. All copyright is reserved by Multiplex Partners 2020, www.multiplexpartners.com. For activation coaching or training, please contact advisor@multiplexpartners.com. Multiplex Partners.